Good morning, guys, or good afternoon, whether you're joining me from the present or the future. Welcome back to another FutureFight Vanguard video. We are going to be talking about the 7 Seas deck from character Booster 3. This deck is actually pretty fun. I didn't really give it like a lot of I didn't really look at it a whole lot before I playtested it, and but this deck ended up being really fun. So, but I've always thought the 7 Seas, if it's not Grade 1 Rush, is really fun to play. Grade 1 Rush is good, but me personally, I just don't find it fun to play because I like the stride and all that stuff. But yeah, let's get right into the deck. Let's unflip our strides here. Alright, so starting with our grade 3s, we have 4 7 Seas Sage Purgeton, something like that. I think the name's different in English, but its skill is Counterblast 2. At the beginning of the ride phase, if you have a grade 2 or greater Vanguard with 7 Seas in its name, then you can pay the cost, and if you do, you ride this card as stand. So basically, this card is used because you use the break ride in this deck, which is Night Mist. So when you want to ideally ride Night Mist, and then later in the game, if you don't have a Purgeton in your hand to break ride over it and then stride, you can just break ride from your drop zone by counterblasting 2 at the beginning of the ride phase. So that's pretty cool. And then also, when this card is placed on Vanguard, you get to choose up to 1 card from your drop zone and call it to the rearguard circle. And then at the end of the turn, you retire the unit that you called. So most of the time in 7 Seas, they always have the clause that you retire the unit that was called at the end phase. So most of the time, you want to call something and do something with it to get rid of it or to use it up before you have to retire it, which is why Slash Shade is really good. Night Alert, I found out, is a really good card. But yeah, we'll get more into that when I get down to those cards. So then we have 4 Night Mist. Is basically your main grade 3 that you want to ride first. And then its limit break is break ride. When a Grand Blue unit rides this unit, choose one of your Vanguards and that unit gets plus 10,000 power. And then you get to choose 2 Grand Blue cards from your drop zone, call them to the rearguard circle, and the units called with this effect get plus 5,000 power until the end of the turn. And then, like I was talking about before, at the end of that turn, you retire those units. So what happens is, whenever you break ride, you just call 2 units from the drop zone. It's basically a free cost. You just have to be limit break 4. You call 2 units from the drop zone, they get plus 5,000 power, and then you retire them at the end. But most of the time, call something that you can do something with to get rid of it. So that you won't minus, but you'll plus. Or it's not really a minus, it's just free, so. But you do want a plus off of it, basically. Next, we have the 7 Seas Elite Night Jasper. 4 of these. So this is one of the new grade 2s that 7 Seas has. I kind of like this card. I wish it gained power when it attacks, like 2k or something like that, but it's fine as is. So when this card attacks a Vanguard and it's on the rearguard circle, you can pay the cost, which is milling 2 cards from the top of your deck. And then if you mill 2 until the end of the battle, this unit gets, when it hits, then if you have a Vanguard with 7 Seas in its name, then you countercharge 1, soul charge 1. So this card helps you replenish your resources, but it kind of sucks that it's on hit and not on attack. Because if it was on attack, your opponent wouldn't get to decide if you use it or not. But you know, it is what it is. It's good resource management. Next we have 4 Slash Shade. Slash Shade, as most of you probably know, it's run in the grade 1 7 Seas Rush deck and pretty much every 7 Seas deck ever. When your Vanguard with 7 Seas in its name attacks a Vanguard, you can counterblast 1, choose one of your grade 1 or greater rearguards and retire it. And then if you do, you call this card to the rearguard circle and it gets plus 2,000 power. So basically, in this deck, you want to attack with your rearguards first. And then if you have, like, depending on how many Slash Shades you have in the drop zone, when you attack with your Vanguard, you immediately counterblast 1 and retire one of your grade 1 or higher rear guards, and then you call the slash shade to the rear guard circle just so that you can get some extra attacks through. So ideally this deck does 5 attacks. I think 5 attacks is the maximum that you can do, unless I'm forgetting something. But yeah, we have 4 Night Spinel, also a really good card that you guys probably know from the grade 1 7 Seas Rush deck. It is a grade 2 that says when your other unit with 7 Seas in its name is placed on rearguard from your drop zone, this unit gets plus 2,000 power, and then you can actually discard a card with 7 Seas in its name, and then you call this card to open rearguard circle. This card in an actual 7 Seas deck is like really good because you can set up so many plays just by like sending cards that are in your hand that you ideally wouldn't want to play from the field to the field from your hand, but from the drop zone instead. Those are like really ideal for using with Night Spinel's skill. And also it's just fun like because you can just let your rear guards die and not care about them knowing that you're going to bring them back because you're Grand Blue. Moving on, we have 2 of another new card called 7 Seas Sailor Night Alert. So what Night Alert does is when it's placed from the rear guard or when it's placed on rear guard from your drop zone, you can counterblast a 7 Seas card if you have a grade 3 or greater 7 Seas Vanguard. So basically if you're on grade 3 in this deck and it's placed on rear guard from your drop zone, you counterblast the 7 Seas card, and then until the end of the turn it gets plus 2,000 power, and when your Vanguard attacks you can shove into Soul and draw a card. So it's kind of like a grade 2 version of the plus 5,000 crits that all the G-Break decks have, except it just doesn't give plus 5,000 to your Vanguard. So then we have 4 unflipped PGs. Counterblast can be heavy in this deck. Yeah, not much more than that. We do run 2 Tommy the Ghosty Brothers because we do want to be focused on striding. However, this deck is fine when we're not striding, so that's why we're not running like 4 or something like that. We do run 1 Witch Doctor of the 7 Seas Rice Tutor, yeah, Rice Tutor, something like that. Sorry if I mispronounced that. But yeah, this skill is actually really good once you start getting your drop zone built up. So basically what Rise to Tutor does is you rest this unit and you mill the top card of your deck. And if that card had 7 Seas in its name, then you choose another unit in your drop zone with the same name, with the same grade as the card that you milled, and then you call it to open rearguard circle. So this card can call, like, let's say that you mill the 7 Seas crit, right? You can call like a Mick the Ghosty. Like say you mill this, you can call this. Say you mill a Night Crow, you can call a Night Crow or a Night Alert. Let's say you mill a Night Jasper, you can call slash Jasper or Spinel. Like, it's really good. Or if you mill Night Mist, you can just call like Purgeton and stuff like that. But yeah, at the end of the turn, that unit retires. So make sure you either make it worthwhile in pressure, or just do something that you can get advantage off of, like calling a Rough Seas Banshee or something like that. We have 4 Night Crow because he is not restricted in America. Thank goodness, because I don't think the regular version of this deck would do that great without it. Even though I think in my playtest games, I don't think I used it a lot, but I could have. I just didn't. But so you choose one of your rear guards, not named Night Crow, when it's in the drop zone, and then you can just retire that unit and then call this unit. So it basically helps you get around that whole like thing where all the 7 Seas cards are gonna die at the end of your turn. Well, you can get rid of them for Night Crow if you think that it's worth it, and then Night Crow just stays on the board, giving you pretty much a plus advantage to your field. We run the new starter in this deck. As you guys can see, he has the little ghosty sword, which I find so cool. But his name is 7 Seas Soldier Sticks. So what Sticks does is when your other unit with 7 seasons card name is placed on the rear guard from your drop zone, you can move this card into the soul, and then if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with 7 seasons name, then you choose a grade 1 or greater with 7 seasons name from your drop zone and call it to rear guard, and then at the end of the turn that unit retires. So basically what happens is whenever you call, like, this card can help you set up multi-attacks, it can help you set up a board, like just whenever another 7Cs unit is placed on the drop zone or placed on rear guard from drop zone in general, you can just shove it into soul if you're grade 3, and then you can call any 7Cs card that's grade 1 or greater. So usually I call Night Alert because it's a plus. We do have for Scavenge Dragon, the 7Cs crit, the new 7Cs crit. We run 4 Rough Seas Banshee, 1 Assault Command Karigan. I actually want to say that there's another 7Cs crit, but I don't remember if there is or not. So if there's not, you can run any crit here. But yeah, Karigan, she's bae. Carignon, yeah, something like that. But yeah, so moving on, we have 3 Mix the Ghosty. So the reason that I ran 9 crit, 3 stand, and 4 heal is because I feel like in the 7Cs deck, you want to crit more than getting stands because you only really run the stands to prevent yourself from decking out should the game ever make it that far in. And also just as a trigger that can put itself back to the deck and give plus 10,000 or something, that's always like super useful. So yeah, you have Make the Ghosty. When it's called from the drop zone and your generation break, you can choose to hollow it at any time that it's played. But if it's hollowed from the drop zone, then you get to choose a unit. It gets plus 10,000 power, and then when this card is put into the drop zone at any time after that, you put this unit into the deck and shuffle the deck. Next we have 4 Crusher Francesca. Just like I said before in the Night Rose video, we are not in T-Break yet, so we are not running like any of the special heals or anything like that. So yeah, we're running Crusher Francesca because she has the waifu factor, I guess. Alright, so moving on to the G-Zone, we have 4 Negro Songer. So basically, what Negro Songer does, if you guys know the Night Rose deck, this is a very prominent card used in there. You can counterboss 1 and flip down a Negro, or flip up a Negro Songer from your G-Zone, and then you choose a card from your hand, discard it, and then this basically happens at the end of the battle of this unit attack. So at the end of your Vanguard attack, when you're on Negro Songer, you counterboss 1, you flip a Negro Songer, and you discard a card, and then you look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You can put up to 1 into the drop zone. So let's say that there's like 4 triggers, you want to keep them in your deck, you can just put all of them back to the deck and shuffle. But if there's a card that you see in there, which most of the time that there is, that would be good in the drop zone or better in the drop zone, you can just mill it out to make your chance of checking triggers like higher, and also giving you a chance to use that new unit that's now in the drop zone. So you can choose a card from your drop zone, call it to rear guard, and then it gets plus 5,000 power for every face-up card in your G zone until the end of the turn. So you can use this as a starter, you can use this as a finisher. It really doesn't matter. This card's good either way. But yeah, we run 4 of those. So we do run 2 7Cs head Night Sela. So this card does something completely different from what I thought it did when I was doing my playtest. When I was doing the playtest, I thought that it worked like the Vert Stride, where at the end of the turn, or at the end of the battle that this unit attacked, you can pay whatever the cost is, and then it rides a 7Cs card from your drop zone as stand, but it actually rides it as rest, which makes a big difference. And I think I lost the game because I didn't read that correctly. But because I assumed that I was going to get another Vanguard attack, like it would basically be like a next stage type thing. But it's not. it is a lot worse than I thought. So in this case, you might just run one or none, and then you can just replace them and Jumbo Dragon with Gauches, because Gauche is really good in this deck. You build a soul really efficiently. So 7 Seas Head Knight Sola says at the end of the battle that this unit attacked a Vanguard, you may pay the cost, which is counterblast 1 7 Seas card, and choose 2 cards with 7 Seas in its name from your hand and discard it. And then you can put this unit face up into the G zone and choose a grade 3 card with 7 Seas in its name from your drop zone and write it on the Vanguard as rest. So you can choose to like rewrite a Night Mist from your drop zone, and then when you do that, you are giving yourself an extra soul for the future turns when you want to use something like Gauche. But you also get to limit break 4, break ride, and call 2 units and give them plus 5k. So that's pretty cool. Also, I guess it should be noted that when you're calling 2 units from the drop zone, if you call 2 Night Spinel, they're technically being called at the same time, so they will get 2k from each other's skill. So whenever you do it off of the break ride, those will be 16k attackers, which is pretty much the biggest attacker that you can call off of the break ride. So moving on to Eclipse Dragon Hulk Jumbo Dragon. Jumbo Dragon says when it's placed on Vanguard Circle, put up to 4 cards from the top of your deck into the drop zone. So you can choose to mill 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4 cards. And then for each normal unit put into the drop zone with its effect, this unit gets plus 5,000 power. And then if the number of trigger units put into the drop zone this way is 2 or more, you get to choose a unit from your drop zone and call it to rearguard. So it kind of gives you something for, it becomes a beater for milling normal units, and then if you mill trigger units, it kind of like says I'm sorry that you milled trigger units and lets you call a unit. We mostly never go into this card, but we did run it like in a just in case factor that I needed like a Blizza type card. We do run 2 Gauche. I probably should be running 4 because I didn't realize how good this card was in this deck, but this card's good in every deck, in every Grand Blue deck, pretty much, I think. Any Grand Blue deck where you run a Rough Seas Banshee, basically. But you counterblast 1 and soul blast 1, and you flip a Gauche from your G zone face up. When this unit's placed on Vanguard, that's when you pay the cost. And then if you do, you choose up to 5 cards from your soul, you put them into your drop zone, and then you choose the same number of cards from your drop zone as the number of cards put into the drop zone from your soul. And then you call them to separate rearguard circle, and they get plus 1,000 for every face-up card in your G-Zone. So the plus 1,000 for every face-up card in your G-Zone is not so much the important part as you like getting to call an entire board for effectively counterblast 1 when you have a lot of soul. So that's really good. Next we run 2 One Who Is Loved by the 7 Seas Night Mist. It's a pretty basic 7 Seas stride. But it says if you have a heart card with 7 Seas' name, you just get to counterblast 1 and choose 2 units from your drop zone and call them to rearguard circle for free. And then at the end of the turn, retire the unit. But remember what I said, where you just choose 2 cards that you can get plus value off of, so that it's not wasted. Next we have 1 Ghosty King Obadiah, in case we need to get stuff into the drop zone. We're never really in that situation where we have to use it, so you guys can replace this with Sabriz if you want. But in my opinion, I don't think that Sabriz is necessary because this deck does just fine when your opponent chooses not to ride to grade 2. And you guys will see that in the video display games. But for the G Guardians, we run 2 Negro Mode. Negro Mode is really good card. I'm actually surprised that I don't really see it in any Grand Blue decks nowadays. But basically when it's placed on the guard circle, you Soul Blast 1, and then if the number of cards in your drop zone is 5 or more, so basically you can only pay the cost if the number of cards in your drop zone is 5 or more, which, come on, it's Grand Blue, it's always going to be 5 or more. But you Soul Blast 1, and then if you this card gets plus 5,000 shield, Then, if there's 10 or more cards in drop zone, this card gets plus 5,000 shield. Then, if there's 15 or more cards in your drop zone, this unit gets plus 5,000 shield. So this unit can guard up to a maximum of 41k. So basically, when you play it and you have 5 in your drop zone, it's 31. Then if it's 10, it's 36k shield. Then if it's 15, then it's 41k shield, assuming that you're on 11k Vanguard. So pretty good card. Then our other G Guardian is we run 2 Deep Corpse Dragon. So Deep Corpse Dragon just says when you G Guard with it, you can mill 2 cards from your deck, from the top of your deck, and then this unit gets plus 5,000 shield until the end of that battle. So it's basically just a 31k shield. I end up using Negro mode a lot more, so it's not even a thing where you regularly Dragon Hulk, I would say, or regularly Deep Corpse Dragon. But yeah, we are reopening our area right now so that we can move right along to the matches. So I was dared when I made this video by a 70s player that I know to act like a pirate every time something unfortunate happens to my opponent, which I would do, but I'll just laugh like Mr. Krabs or something. So my opponent is playing Messiahs. They decided to rush me, which I was actually pretty upset about because I just started like taking all the damage because I didn't have a card that I really wanted to block with in my hand. So he attacks me with both his rear guards and he attacks me with Vanguard and checks a crit. So I go to 4 damage and I'm like, wow, this guy is like really trying to fight me. I think he thought that I was playing grade 1 7Cs, which is why he did that. But then I see his hand like now that I'm playing, which I know his hand after this. But I do attack his rear guard because I don't want that card to be on the field. I freaking hate Sacrifice Messiah when I don't have a control deck that can destroy it at any time. So I do get the one to pass and it goes through. Then he doesn't play grade 2 and I'm like, arg, 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 basically. I'm like, value, money, 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 money. But yeah, he doesn't ride, so I know that I'm going to ride to grade 3 before he gets to grade 2, which is all I need to know. Not to know that I'm going to win the game, but that's pretty much all I need to know that I'm going to be like in a good like position, even though he rushed me so hard and got a crit. So we are attacking his rear guards here just because like we don't want him to have any attackers, especially if his hand is grade 3s like we thought it was at the time, which my theories proved correct. So he chooses not to G assist and instead he just attacks my rear guard, which I let go because I'm 7Cs. So then I 10k no pass him. He does check a heal. I draw, and then I decide to break ride here because I am 4 damage. So him rushing me actually, I think, worked against him because now I'm able to do a lot of things off of it. So off the break ride, I called Rough Seas Banshee and Night Alert, and it gave them plus 5,000 power. And then I used Purge Tin skill to call a card from the drop zone. And I just decided to call the PG because the only thing in my drop zone was the PG and the heal. So drop zone's not that set up yet. But I did counterblast 1 for Night Alert and add 2,000 power to it and stuff. But I actually like read the skill wrong the first time that I ever used it. So I actually ended up doing the attack order wrong and using Night Alert wrong, or I could have drawn another card. So I do decide to rush him back since I know that he doesn't have the means to really guard it efficiently. So I attack him for 10 and then 26 here. So this is what I'm talking about. Like I would have just attacked with the other column first, the column with Night Alert, because Night Alert would have gone to the soul right when my Vanguard attacked, and then I would have drawn a card. So yeah. But I do check no triggers, which might have been changed if I would have used Night Alert, but I don't really know. I don't really remember if it would have affected anything. But he did take the damage, and for some reason he wasn't aware that he hadn't taken a damage from my Vanguard yet. So I was basically waiting on him to take my Vanguard attack. He does check a critical and put it all to Vanguard, but then I do attack him for 23, and then I realized, like, Night Spindle, like, my mistake basically. Now he finally chooses to G-assist, so at this point I was like a little late for that, buddy boy. But then even when he G-assists, he whiffs. So I was just like, arg, 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 arg. Like, that's what you get for rushing me. No, I'm just kidding. That's really scummy. But yeah, he does check his grade 2 here, which kind of late, but you know, better late than never, I guess. So yeah, he does end his turn, and I start my turn. We don't have cards to call stuff from drop zone in hand, so I do choose to ride another Purgeton, or Pletchton, Purgeon, however you want to say it. So then I call Night Alert, and we do things the right way this time. So I kind of also want to use the skill. Then I use Stick skill. Since a 7C's card was called, then I get to call a card from my drop zone. And then I was basically calling it there so I could use the skill to mill a card. So I'm resting it, milling a card, and then unfortunately the card that I milled was Mick the Ghosty, which unfortunately is not 7C's Ghosty Mick or something like that. So I couldn't call anything, so I do attack him for 9 though. And then he takes it, yep, and just goes to 6 damage. So that was the first game. A little unfortunate for the Messiah player, but he did crit me in the early game. That's what happens. Don't crit people. Don't be rude. Alright, so moving up to game 2, we shall see who we will make walk the plank now. Alright, so next we're playing against a Brave player, looks like. Alt Mile. Looks like we got pretty decent hand. I'm pretty happy about it. His hand also looks pretty decent, except for the fact that he's missing grade 3. We do on our first turn play Rough Seas Banshee, move it to the Soul, which we got kind of sad because we drew a crit off of it, and we would have checked that as our drive check. But he does check a draw trigger, and we don't like that because right now we're just seeing a really full hand on his part. But we do start the game with 2 Night Spindles, so that was pretty broke. So I do attack him for 9, and then 9 again. He takes it, and there's his Alt Mile. And then I check, and then he checks a Red on. So he doesn't have a grade 3, so he decides to G-assist. And then he whiffs the G-assist. So that's unfortunate for him. But I don't think he's still in that bad of a situation because I'm still grade 2. If I was grade 3 already, then things could be bad. But I did no guard it. I take a damage. And then I ride Night Mist. And then I can't really do anything with my hand, so I just proceed to attack. I attack for 9 and then 9 so that the attacks aren't wasted if he checks a trigger like so. And then he guards me for a 2 to pass, which I low-key thought that I was going to get for a second. But I didn't get it. So then he G-assists a second time. And then he whiffs it again. I don't know, like, it seems like people build their decks so weird on area. Like, I feel like when I G-assist, I always get it. Or, like, I G-assist once and I'm unhappy about it, but at least I get it, I guess. I get it. But he does attack for his turn, not really doing much to me. I just wanted to guard his early attacks because in the case that he should get Alt Mall later on, I want to be able to just take a lot of those big attacks. So I use Night Spinel to drop Purged into the drop zone, and then I call Night Spinel. And then I do use Drop Night Alert to call Night Spinel, just so that I can use sticks to call Night Alert. So yeah, that's pretty awesome. All these cards get, or the 2 cards get +2. So I do attack with Vanguard, move into the Soul Draw card, and we draw another crit. So I'm like, dang it. But he 2 passes us, and then we do check a crit anyway, so it's fine in the end. But he draws Alt Mile, which is baller for him, because he did not want to G-assist with that hand, pretty much. So he strides. He still has 2 PGs in his hand. The only crappy thing is that he's at 5 damage. But he goes into the new Brave Stride from GBT11, Heroic Divine Knight Halbwatts, something like that. And he uses Alt Mile skill to call a card from his hand. I don't know why he called that card, because you don't have to call a card to gain power. But he does use Halbwatts Axe skill to counter boss 1, soul boss 1, and then choose a card from his G zone with the same name as the unit, which he flipped Luminous Hope Dragon, but I thought that it was any unit that you could flip with this because of the weird way that Bushiroad has been wording their cards. But yeah, you search your deck for up to 1 card with the Brave ability, and each card with for each card with the Brave ability in your G zone face up, and then they all get plus 2,000 power. So this card's pretty good. The only part I don't like is its second Brave ability, which is basically counter boss 1, and it gets plus 5,000. Like, why does that matter, I guess? Unless you know that your opponent doesn't have a PG and you're attacking them for game. But, like, why would you want to waste so many counter boss on that? I don't know. But he does use this starter. He just attacks my rear guard, which I gladly let go because we are Grand Blue. We take those. He checks 3 cards, and they are 3 non-triggers. I take a damage, and then he attacks me with his last card, and we do guard it. Even though I could have just took it and been let me break 4. Like, I want to prolong this game. So I stride into Negro Songer, I believe I went into. Yeah, so I went into Negro Songer here. I do play the Slash Shade. And our drop zone is just kind of meh, so all the rest of the cards in our hand we want to keep, so we do go 9 to the rear guard, and then we attack 26 to the Vanguard. Mostly because we know that any card that we call off of Negro Songer is going to give +2 to our other grade 2, which means that it'll be able to hit the Vanguard. So we're using Negro Songer skill to counter boss 1, and select the same copy of it, flip it, and then discard a card. So it will basically discard a grade 3 that we don't need because we just checked 2 of them. So we check the top 4, and we end up having a PG, a crit, a PG, and a Slash Shade, which unfortunately the timing is wrong for Slash Shade. Like, we can't kind of us one call it right now, but we do finish out Negro Songer skill to call a Night Spinel, and then the other Night Spinel gets +2, and then this one gets +4. So he does intercept with the back row. I kind of forgot about that card. And then he does not have the correct cards in his hand to stride. But if I were him, though, I would honestly just like discard 2 of the grade 2s, and then I would go into Holy Brave Lancer or whatnot. But you know, that might just be me. But he decides to use Alt Mouse skill, the Ride Face skill, to call a card from his hand, and then it gets +4,000. That card also gets +5,000 from its own skill, so that's why it's 18. He does go into Halbwash again. And then this is where we both noticed when he used it this time. That's when we both noticed that you have to flip a copy of itself. Because I was looking at it, I was like, oh my god, this card's so good. You just get to call like a free board, basically. And you don't even have to be brave to do it, so. You only have to be brave to do the second ability, which the second ability seems crappy, and I would never use it anyways. So. His counterblasts are kind of precious in Alt Mile, I feel like. He asked me if he could redo because he didn't realize that Halbwash flips itself. So I just told him that he can pretend that he's playing for Halbwash. Like at this point, the first time that he used it, I didn't realize that was the cost, so that was also on me too. So like that's why I just let him do that, because he intended, like if he knew, he would have ran 4, so it's not a big deal. Yeah, so he does counterblast 1, soul blast 1, and flip, and then he searches for 3 brave cards from his deck. He does ask me if we can get a rematch after this because his side of the game sucked, which I did agree to, and you guys will see that right after this. But he calls Scouting Owl, Slayman, and Starius. This is like a newer card from GBT11. Doesn't seem better than the current Brave grade ones that they have, but I guess to each his own personal preference. Alright. I even thought about running draw triggers in this, but because we want like a lot of advantage, but that would just be solved by using Gauche more, in my opinion. Like, you can use Negro Songer a lot to force cards out of people's hands, but if you want that advantage, Gauche is the boy. He's the way to go. He's the truth and the light. I wish there was a 7Cs card that countercharged one when it's called from the drop zone, though. That would be cool. When he does attack with his Vanguard, we do Soul Blast 1 for Negro Mode's ability, and that makes it 31, so that's 1 to pass. And then we throw down a Make the Ghosty because we want to call it next turn to wreak havoc upon him. So he checks 3 cards, and 2 of them are criticals, so thank goodness we have an actual defensive hand, or we might have actually died. Because our hand could have been any random 6 cards in our hand, and sometimes 6 cards is not enough to guard 43,000 with 3 criticals. So, especially when it's not even 43,000, he uses the Slayman to call red on, so this is actually 46. So I G-guard and use Negro Mode again to Soul Blast 1, and then that is 36, I believe. So 46, and then 51. So he attacks for 27. We just decided to take that one because we like the damage anyways. So we do ride the Pledgeton from our hand, and we use the Break Ride. So at this point, he's pretty much guaranteed dead, and if he's not dead, that is next level. Like, he is next level if he survives his turn, basically. Yeah, but we do Break Ride, calling 2 cards to the board. They get plus 5,000 power. And then we use Pledgeton skill to call Mick the Ghosty, and Mick the Ghosty gives its hollow effect the plus 10,000. Then we drop a card to Stride into Negro Songer. So this is going to be a pretty proactive turn, I would say. So we do attack for 35 first. He does Soul Blast 1 because he's brave. So this is 10, 21, 31, 41. So yeah, he does guard me for 41. Then we decide to attack with our Vanguard, move Night Alert to the Soul, and draw a card. And then I think I had I had 2 Slash Shades in the drop zone. Like, I feel like I should have just went Gauche this turn, but it is what it is. No harm, no foul. He used the last of his cards to guard my Assault, which I don't really know why he did that. But yeah, we do check a stand trigger, and then we choose to use Negro Songer ability to counterboss 1, flip a Negro Songer, and then discard a card. So we want to get that Mick the Ghosty in the drop zone that's in our hand, so that we can get it back to the deck. We look at the top 4 cards of the deck. We decide that Night Spindle is best to put into the drop zone, and then we call out Mick the Ghosty and give plus 10k to the column that is lower. So he literally has to double heal to get out of this. That's what I was making the goal. So since that's very unlikely, he does lose that game. And yeah, we will move on to the next game right now. Yeah, if you guys are interested in 70s, I highly suggest playing this deck. Like, it is really, really, really fun. But loading up 70s game 3. We are playing against the same Brave guy. This time we don't get a grade 3, but he also doesn't have a grade 3, but he just drew one, so he's already ahead of us in that respect. But we do ride, and then we attack. And then he rides a grade 2, decides to call Asilius, and then search his deck for Alt Mile, and then he discards the grade 2, which is weird. Like, I feel like he didn't have to do that. But yeah, we do take a damage from his Vanguard. Then we do ride a grade 2 and play a grade 2. And then we activate our card. So we milled, and it was a 70s, but we don't have another card that's not that in our drop zone. But it did help because now we get to attack and call. And what I could have done, but I didn't even realize, oh, actually, never mind. I was gonna say I could have Styxed, but I can't Styx unless I'm grade 3, so rip to that dream. But we do put him at 4 damage early. And now we just hope that we draw a grade 3 next turn. Which I'm pretty sure I remember specifically not drawing a grade 3. But he does attack us for 21. He checks no triggers, thank goodness, because we do not need triggers checked on us when we're having such an unfortunate time. But yeah, I literally draw a PG and I G-assist, and it's literally the next card. It like makes me so tilted. But yeah, we G-assist, we get rid of 2 of the heals because we ultimately want to keep the PG, I feel like. And then we get rid of 2 Negro Songer because we don't really need them as much. And also, this is the game where I thought that the card that lets you like basically superior ride from your drop zone after the battle. I thought it superior ride to stand, so I would have gotten rid of those 2 cards because that's whack. But when we attacked, we probably should have counterblasted one, or actually, sorry, never mind. We shouldn't have counterblasted one because we needed it to use Negro Songer. Something I could have done, however, was yeah, so I called that there. Okay, so yeah, I did use sticks here to call, and then Night Spindle gets plus 2k, then I attack him for 16, and then I attack him for 21. I was hoping that he would drop 3 cards here since I saw him drop 2 5ks, but he didn't, which is saddening. But we're still only at 2 damage, so we're not in that rough of a spot. It would just been way better if we didn't have to G-assist, because we would have had 2 heals in our hand. Like, oh, that would have been amazing. But yeah, he does stride. He does use All Mall Ride skill to call a card and give plus 4k. And then he goes into Halbwash. I feel like it's this guy's favorite card. Or maybe it's just his best first stride. I haven't tried the BT11 Brave deck yet, so I wouldn't really know, I guess. Alright. So he decides to call a Scouting Owl, obviously for like a next turn defense against me, because he is at 5 damage and he has 2 grade 3s in his hand, and most likely he's not going to kill me, even though I only have 3 cards in my hand. Like, it's like very much so possible for him to kill me. But I do guard with this Mick just so that we can lower the chances of that happening. So he literally has to crit me like a bunch. But then he checks a heal trigger here, a heal trigger here, and then a heal trigger here. And we both just pause like, wait, what the heck? Did that just happen? I think that's the first time someone's ever triple healed on me ever in the game of Vanguard, and it's like gone off. Which is, yeah, it's pretty dumb. Yeah, like at this point I was like, I don't know if this game's winnable anymore. The game literally went from we're gonna kill him next turn to like, oh snap, this game might be unwinnable now. But thank goodness none of those were crits, because even if he would have like double healed and crit, I would have lost the game, because I wouldn't be able to take these last 2 damages. But yeah, we do stride. I didn't have a pledge or a pledge tin or purge tin or whatever its name is in the drop zone. So I go into this card which I had so much regrets, because I should have just went into something else, but I didn't realize like what it did. I was like, oh my god, this card's so tight, like Limit Break 4, like next stage basically, and no, that's not what it does. So we'll find out as we do this, and then basically misplay. And I don't really know if it lost us the game. I think that triple heal lost us the game, but I guess it all depends on the perspective you're looking from. So we do attack him with our Vanguard, because I assumed that I was going to call 2 more off the break ride from the drop zone, and then get a twin drive. So I thought that it wasn't a minus at all, but we do use the skill to counterblast a 7Cs card and discard 2 7Cs cards, and then put this unit back to the deck, or yeah, back to the G zone, back to the G deck, whatever. And then we superior ride, and we break ride, and we call 2 units, and they get plus 5,000 power. So we do call in Night Spinel and Jasper, which I called Jasper. The whole reason that I called Jasper is because I was planning on attacking with Jasper, then Spinel, then attacking again and getting Slash Shade, and I was like, oh my god, he's so dead. Like, all these attacks, he can't even guard this with like all the G Guardians. But then I was wrong, because he was like, wait, he's like, are you attacking Vanguard to Vanguard? And I was like, yeah. And then he was like, but it Superior rides in as rest. And then I was like, wait, and I read the card and I was like, we lose. Because we don't get drive checks or anything, and I know that I can't survive like a Brave Dex turn with 2 PGs in my hand and a single heal trigger. Like, that's just not gonna fly. So as a result, I don't like this card as much. Like, it's not great. They should have just like, and then when I said rest in peace from it, my opponent was like, it's okay, it should have been that effect anyways. And I'm like, yeah, you're not wrong. Like, why wouldn't they do that? Like, I mean, I guess, like, I don't even think that would be too strong. Like, that would just be, like, really good. But, you know, I guess it would be really strong, considering the fact that if I was able to do it, I would have just been forcing G Guardians out of his hand, like, left and right, if he couldn't give me all the cards required to guard. But yeah, he does Stride, and this is where we die, boys, because literally Luminous Hope Dragon. Yeah, not much to say about that. He's the hope of all those who oppose the pirates. So we did not get the money. We got planktoned. So yeah, he is using Luminous Hope skill to flip a Luminous Hope, and then he's giving plus 10,000 to himself, and all of his rear guards with the Brave ability should have gotten plus 1k. He didn't give plus 1k to his starter because he intended on using it, so he uses the starter at the beginning of the battle phase, and then now he's calling a card off of Luminous Hope. So he gets that free call, and then since he has 3 Brave units face up in the G zone, then he gets a crit, so that's pretty cool. He does check a crit, and we decide to G-Guard this one in case we can somehow check a heal trigger as the final damage for the last attack, and then top deck Stride Fodder, we'd win. But yeah, unfortunately, we're not good at this game, so we lost. But yeah, that has been my FutureFight Vanguard series for 7Cs. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you thought of it down below. And also stay tuned for the 500 subscriber video. Should be putting that up like either this week or next week. Really depends on when I work, because I've decided to not do videos on days that I work. Because it's not fair to you guys when I'm so tired and I'm like messing up a bunch of stuff. But yeah, that has been the video, guys. Definitely check out the description down below if you want to support more. And this has been Cardfight Empire, and signing out, guys. Have a great day.